Hey, welcome to the official episode 2 of YPTV. It is I, Young Paperwork, here with my co-host.
Yes, sir. It is your boy, Vincent Valentine, aka Vincent Venice, aka the villain, aka me and him, because it's top guys and we're in.
Yeah. I actually have a question for you because you're an NFL guy. Real quick, has the Taylor Swift stuff been bothering you at all, or you don't care, or you haven't noticed? Because
I wouldn't say it's
I've seen a lot of discourse where people are like, get her out of football, Travis Kelsey, I don't know this and that. I don't know
it
if it's
doesn't it
bothering you.
doesn't bother me, but it's nasty, and I'll explain why it's nasty. Because I kind of think of it like this: if you think about Taylor Swift's demographic and fan base, and you think about the NFL, promoting her a ton doesn't really make sense because the people from her fan base are not gonna stay and watch football.
Mhm.
So this is just kind of silly and it's over the top and they're going and they're panning to her every couple of seconds and it's really not that wild. Travis Kelsey is a big time football player. He
Yeah.
shot his shot at Taylor Swift. He nailed it. Good for him. And that's it. But I also get that she's one of the biggest people on the planet currently, or musicians especially. Probably two is her and Beyonce at the top, and then everybody else after that. But it doesn't really bother me. It just doesn't make any sense why they're biting so into it so much because she's not gonna do anything for NFL long term. Her fan base is so far removed from the NFL. It couldn't be more opposite. They're just there to see what Travis Kelsey looks like if he does good, and they're just following her. They're her
Mhm.
backpack. They don't care about none of this football stuff. So I think the NFL is just being pretty shameless with it right now.
They're trying to capitalize. That's what it seemed like to me. Nah, cause
Yeah.
I saw on Pop Culture Crisis, they were there's a TikTok trend where the girlfriend would be like, "Hey yo, like Taylor Swift put Travis Kelsey on the map," and then the boyfriends would be like, "He's a two-time t- tight end."
Yeah.
Like they could have stuff going off, right? So I'm like, is this actually like real? Like,
But
cause
they,
yeah,
they but they yeah, they actually talking about her on
I seen the Chiefs
like
change their
undisputed
logo,
and stuff.
not the logo, the banner on their Twitter. I think.
Yeah. Man, it's so the NFL did, yeah, and then they actually talking about her on places like undisputed and stuff. Like I don't know if he is that, but just shows like that. I don't know if Skip is. He probably did, knowing him. But
Damn.
just shows like that, they just talking about her in real life. I'm like, are we serious? I'm listening to like a couple football podcasts, and she popped up on all of them as far as them discussing
Uh, Taylor Swift is scary to me because she's one of those people where I feel like her fan base, no matter what she does, they just follow suit, lock and step, like it doesn't matter. Like,
her. Oh
like,
yeah, absolutely.
like she has one
She
of
can do
those
no wrong.
rabid fan base. Like, I don't care about football. Taylor Swift likes football. I like football. Like, that's scary to
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
That is
yeah.
scary to me. So, no, I'm just curious because I was like,
No, I feel it. I feel it. But yeah, no, it's because it's definitely surpassed the lengths of football. It's very nasty.
mm, yeah. Another thing that I saw in passing, just real quick before we start reacting to stuff. By the way, send it to my actual DM because it's probably easier for me to pull it up that way because I
Oh,
can't.
Discord DM.
Yeah,
I would say because
Twitter doesn't
the
matter.
only thing I worry about is if these things are too long because you know how fucking
Oh,
this is.
is it like on your phone or the link?
Yeah, yeah, it's on my phone. My phone.
Mm. Okay, well, I'll just have to send it to myself because it's too long for me to just send to myself in my DM. I need that check mark. Unless I just split it in two, I can do that. Anyways, um,
Okay, well here I've sent it one to your Discord DM. See if that works.
did you at all see what the hell was it? There was is it New was it Brooklyn? And there was a guy and his girl who got off at the bus stop.
Yes, I just saw that.
All right, so
Are you
that
talking about
was
the
kind
guy
of
who
yeah.
got killed?
He unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah, he didn't make it. Rest in peace. And a similar issue to like kind of the brick lady thing that we talked about, where it's like because he was a super progressive, They're just like, huh? You guess what you vote for? Like, kind of like die. And I'm like, oh my god, come on, like we don't gotta go that far. But
I just never
it
understand that because we act like that doesn't happen in states where it's not progressive. Like that's just a crime. Like that's not a oh
the
well
the
y'all voted to allow this and then now it's happening. Like that literally can happen anywhere in the country. Period.
agreed. But the argument that they tend to make is that all the things that you vote for are soft on crime policies that actually incentivize the criminal element to be more, to break the law more and more instead of being tough on crime. So doing stuff like I actually first heard this from my best friend, and I'm like, I remember she was explaining it. I never really questioned it at the time because I didn't understand it, and I don't have anybody in my life who's like cracked out. So like it's not an issue that I deal with, but safe injection sites. Why would we spend money to have a place where people can shoot up cleanly instead of just trying to get them clean? Like I don't get that. So there's people who think policies like that are stupid. I'm with you. Criminals are going to do crime. It does not matter where they are, what the consequences are. If they want something or they need something or their back's against the wall, they're going to try something. So, but I do think you can de-incentivize it to the best of your ability by being tough on crime. The reason that I've never been mad at people, like places that are tough on crime, and by the way, I am not a back the blue nigga. I do not like the police at all for any reason. I'll be honest with you. I don't like them. I don't trust them. And I've had bad experiences with them on a personal level. And I think police culture in the West is fucked up and needs to change and be better. Because these guys are bullies. That all being said, I don't break the law. So I'm not scared of getting in trouble. But these smashing grabs that I'm seeing and all that stuff, it's kind of crazy, bro. There's not enough firepower to stop that.
Well, when it comes to your first point, when it comes to a control thing, I just always think that's kind of a we don't know how to fix the problem and it's they're gonna do it anyway, regardless if we outlaw it or not. So
Hmm.
let's just put them in a place where we can watch them. Basically, that's what that is. It's like they always talk about with Amsterdam when they talk about with drugs and stuff like that. They're just like, oh yeah, people do drugs here. They want the drugs in a place, in a controlled place where everybody knows where it's happening.
Okay.
Because if everybody knows where it's happening, you can avoid it. If bad stuff happened, well, then they can look at you and be like, well, that's on you. You knew that's where everybody was going, doing all that stuff. And if you don't like that stuff, you stay from around there. So I think that's kind of why they do it. It's up to you whether that's a good or a bad thing, but I think, or at least that's what I think they try to use it for, is control. We can't stop it, so we rather just be able to see it and put it where we can watch them more than anything else. At least
What's
that's
up,
how I
Simi?
think
Yeah, that's
they
that's
go.
interesting. I never again. I never actually like my six. It's probably like my second time thinking about this concept in general. Like when Brina first brought it up to me, I was in like 2017. I didn't get it, but I'm like, hey, nobody I know is cracked up, so, so I kind of just kept it moving. Um, and it's probably the second time that I thought about it. But yeah, generally speaking, like you know me, like I'm a lot of times when I'm editing, I have all the stuff on the background, so I'm trying to see how different factions and stuff think. Because one thing that we spoke about a little bit before, that you're right, is like what Biden and them are doing, and what like the younger up and coming voting bloc and generation are talking about are night and day. They don't care about what they're pushing out and everything. So it's like I'm starting to see how most groups think. So again, rest in peace to that dude. I don't care that he was like a progressive or whatever the case was. What I really wish he did was just kind of move with more sense. But sometimes I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if you feel about this. How you feel about this? Do you think sometimes like white people are trying to go out their way too much to seem like anti-racist, and then they put themselves in really precarious situations? Like
That's an interesting question. Maybe I could definitely see, especially with the white race in general. Yeah, because when I watched the video, I guess my biggest thing was, especially with somebody holding a knife, more so with a gun, you really can't do anything. But with a knife, or at least what I always think about, especially when it comes to self defense, you always want to keep distance between yourself and that person, or even any stranger in general. if you don't know them and you're in any uncomfortable place, you always want to keep distance, however much that you can. You may seem scary or whatever like that, but I'd rather do that and stay alive than get caught slipping. And I'm not blaming him for that because nobody deserves what happened to him. But you should always try to keep your distance from anyone that you don't know. I'm not trying to be close anytime because you're close and then they grab you or something like that. So as much as anything, you always try to keep your distance, even if you backing up and talking to them. You don't want to turn your back to them per se.
Mhm.
But that's how at least I always try to think about it. You're always trying to keep a certain level of a healthy distance. And if you keep crossing it, then then you gotta do something.
Mhm.
At least that's how I like to think about it. Doesn't guarantee you anything, but I just think it's the best way to kind of keep yourself safe and you're with your person. Even when somebody's coming up to my car or something like that, I don't roll the window all the way down or nothing like that. Somebody just crack it a little bit or something. Or even there, tell them to back up. Like, no. Or I'm already got it in, reverse. Like, nah, you're too close to my car. This is
Mhm.
weird.
The reason I asked it, right, because I don't know if you've seen that I think I think she was 26. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's a little older than that. There was some Forbes something millionaires under 30 or whatever, and there was a white lady who got murdered and I think sexually assaulted
Yes, I heard.
on the rooftop. But if you kind of see what she did in her talking points, it's very pro BLM, this and that, and the third, and X, Y, and Z. And that's why I was asking, like, honestly, I see some people go too far the other way. Because some of those accounts when I scroll, it's just like you black monkeys, and I'm like, oh my God. But
Well, that's the problem. It feels like they're trying to combat the other people going the other way. Just like, see, I knew they were degenerates, blah 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 blah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because that's the problem. It's very hard to combat the people who for some reason think black people are a monolith, but white people don't. When white people commit crimes, we don't go, oh, well, white people committed this crime. But with black people, it seems we all get thrown into a box. Black people in general commit this crime. When a black person tends to be nice or just like, what they classify as more classy or something like that, then they'd be like, oh, well, you're an outlier. Like there's not thousands, hundreds of thousands of people just like me, or at least more of my blueprint. But that's the problem. We get
Mhm.
thrown into things. Black people get thrown into a monolith more so than any other race. Almost no other race gets thrown into quite the same. Maybe Hispanics at this point, especially in America, might get seen as certain things. But yeah, it's just very nasty how we're thrown into that. Because that could have been anybody.
But I also think it's sometimes weird to do that, where it's like, this person passed away, and it's like, hey man, put some respect on the dead, rest in peace, speak about the facts, whatever. But one thing that I noticed that both sides of the fence do, it's like far right. This person was killed. He was a Trump supporter. I'm like, what? What does that have to do? Like, like, I don't like that. And it'll be like super progressive. This and I'm like, just speak about the fact. Like, I don't think that stuff is necessary because it feels like you're trying to say that. Oh, they probably could have deserved this because they're affiliated with this faction and they're affiliated with that faction instead of just being somewhere in the middle or just being kind of impartial. Which is why I can't stand journalism these days. It's just so nasty how
Well, I
journalism has
think
been
over
done.
the past decade, you and me have both kind of talked about this. People just don't seem to have respect for the dead anymore. Or
They like to
and I'm
tap
not
dance on the
saying
grave,
there
rest in
aren't
peace,
bad
Bozo,
people.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I'm
Kevin
not saying
Samuels
there's
is one of
not
them.
bad people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Because there are definitely bad people that die, or we have to. I think there is some agreement from me that when certain people die, we have to speak about the good and the bad. Sometimes people just want to only talk about the good and not
Mhm.
none of the bad because some of these people legit did things that hurt people. But at the same time, man, like people are still humans. They got family. They got people that care about them as well. Just run around telling them to eat shit and fucking yeah, you did. Bozo are just on the internet. Everybody quotes people telling them to die and stuff all the time. I'm just personally, I'm not with that. It's just not for me. There are very special people I feel like you can save those comments for, and just not everybody needs to do that. But it's not up to me. If you feel that way, you feel that way. Can't really stop nobody from feeling that way or voicing it. I just it's not the way I want to operate. I
It
just
just
don't
seems
like
something that's bad for your psyche and soul to have that
it.
level of
Yeah, I
like
just don't think it's
vitriol in
good.
you.
I just don't think it's good for
I
you.
think it's I
Yeah.
think it's I think it's distasteful to speak ill about the departed. That's just how I am. Maybe it's how I'm raised. It's not to say I've never done it where it's like, oh, I don't remember, I don't know where this came from. Well, they're like Hitler like dogs. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. He like dogs. Like he was a monster. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, there's probably like very select people throughout history who are absolute like monsters who you could be like, oh no, like rest in piss, bozo type of thing. But more often than not, it's just people that people disagree with, and it's kind of nasty. You're just like, oh, I didn't like them because I didn't like his opinion on black women or this or abortion or whatever, and it's just like, is that's for that and that reason alone, it's good that they're dead. I don't like that, but it's the world we live in, man.
Yeah.
Internet lets you be anonymous and be a little bit detached from the stuff that's going on. So I kind of understand it. I don't condone this behavior, but I understand it. Rest in
Yep.
peace to Bernie
Yep.
Mac. So yeah. I think that was about everything that I kind of saw in passing. Nothing like truly moved me to the point that I just needed to make it like a super duper subject. But like, I just keep seeing these crime waves and like people just smashing. We've even had some here in Toronto, some like smashing grabs where like people just come and they go. There was that big Philly one with that girl who was laughing like the Joker, just like just tackling. I'm like, oh my god, bro!
Well,
Like,
I don't know where it was, but I do remember seeing a tweet, and they pulled out like some, I guess it was like police documents or something. And like I said, I didn't check all the way into it, so take it with a grain of salt because of
yeah,
the thing. But I remember they posted it, and a bunch of people in the comments, I'm assuming they're white, I don't know for sure, that they were assuming there was gonna be a bunch of black people, and then they showed like the police thing, and it was all white people doing all the
mhm.
theft and doing all the stealing and smashing and grabbing and stuff like that. And it
One of
was
the
just like,
reasons that I actually like because I watch a decent amount of Tim Pool. I like about him because he doesn't he's one political commentator I've seen never fall for the racial baiting ever. He doesn't fall for it. I've even seen like I listen to some Candace Owens. Even her, I think she falls for it sometimes, whether it's pro black, anti whatever. Where, cause like he'll tell you a story, but the only time he's ever been like robbed or whatever was white people who robbed him. It wasn't black people. Like he doesn't fall for that. Um, but yeah, you'd be surprised. Cause for me, I more often than not, I think it's your circumstances and socialization area and your like socio-economical status, like financial status, that dictates more on whether or not you're going to do something like rob a store or whatever. I don't think it's more like I would be
it always
shocked
is.
if a
Research backs this.
if a high class in a nice suburban area, whatever, like black kid goes into something like that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's unlikely. He's well off. He's good. He doesn't need that,
Yeah.
right? But if I come from a low income, high crime neighborhood, yeah, there's a more like, it doesn't matter what my skin color is. The likelihood of me being more engaged in that activity is going to be elevated in the percentage. So
Well, I mean, this has all been proven for a long time. People just choose not to care. But
yeah,
this
because
is
like I
all of
said,
that has
we're
been
the
proven.
monolith always. Like there's no
Yeah.
difference between us. We're just
I mean, how long have we been talking about black on black crime, white on white crime, and these false things of saying black people kill like are like 70% of the murder, some outrageous number, something
Mhm.
like that. When it's just and it's proven how all those ways those are false or falsified, or how you can't, you know, you can't do the numbers for the people that think, or who's doing the numbers, who's doing like this, all this data, and all these things pointing you to like, don't just be so naive and believe, or numbers can make you say whatever you want, and yet people still use those things there. That's why people that honestly sometimes the reason why people be coming to these conclusions about whose race is or this bad or this not and stuff like that is because just the way people use this stuff, or they don't understand sometimes how the way you look by using this stuff makes you look really bad. And so you just it's not people just they being very ignorant sometimes with just that thing. Because, you know, am I a person that believes every part of this thing or every part of this thing is bad or whatever? No, but I just think that like if you're not trying to make yourself aware, or you're not looking at what's going on, that ain't good. Very silly of you.
yeah. Do you think that we overuse those type of words though, like fascist, racism, and all kinds of stuff like that? Like,
Oh,
you think we
100%.
because I feel like
100%.
it loses its meaning, and some of the most egregious situations get overlooked because we just throw that word like some words don't mean anything to me anymore. Like I mean, I'll just give you the one I'm thinking about. Misogynist. That word means nothing to me anymore. It doesn't mean anything. Like I could disagree with a woman if someone says that, and I could disagree politely. It could be like, "Man, I really like orange juice." I'm like, "I think apple juice is better." Misogynist. I'm like, okay. Like that's one of those words that like when I hear it, it literally just does this, and I don't really care. Like it just goes over my head, and just goes out one ear out the other, and I don't even register it anymore because it's just become like a weird colloquial term just to be like, I don't know, I don't know. So just it's like some slang could
I
become
guess
like that
my
too, like swag and certain words like that became like that too, where you just started saying it for no reason, where it lost its actual meaning.
agreed. I guess my problem is sometimes is, and the stuff that I usually ponder over is, what's the line between like mudslinging and us actually trying to like have educated conversations and trying to like teach certain people what they're saying or how it could be defined as this and stuff like that. And I just don't know where that went. And I think a lot of people have just given up, and it's just easier for them to just be angry and argue
We've
and just,
commodified hate really well, though. That's probably what part of it too.
yeah, because I'm just like everybody has just given up with just being like, well, you can't save these people, you can't teach them nothing like, so it's just better if I just call them words and call them this and that. And it's true to some people you can't help, but I just this is just not productive either. So I don't know. And every side seems to think completely destroying the other side is somehow gonna do something like, oh, we just need to wipe out the other side. And I don't know. I just think we've gotten to a really weird area when it comes to a lot of this stuff where nobody knows
Per
how to
my
conversate.
observations, the
Doesn't-
left thinks they're right in eradicating the right. Okay, that's not gonna work. The left thinks that they're correct in getting rid of the right because they think that they're more like they're white supremacists and yada yada blah blah blah. And then at this point, a lot of the right leaning people think that they have completely destroyed the country and that's why they need to usurp power. So you're right. They're just all complete. I don't know. There's been talks about national divorces for America or whatnot, but I can't even be worried about that because Canada is unserious. I don't know if you've seen this. Um, I didn't get a chance to dive into it fully, which is why I didn't like want to make it a topic of discussion. But I'll brush by it briefly. They're trying to introduce a bill. I think if you make something like $1 million or more podcasting in Canada, you have to like register with the government and then start giving them information about like the people you work with and this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. And it's just like our internet privacy in this country and things that we can do is just getting worse and worse with all these bills and stuff they're trying to pass. So I'm kind of hoping with the next cycle of elections, people are really paying attention to what happened down here in Canada and they vote accordingly. I don't. It's not about party affiliation. It's not about that. It's about. I actually think Trudeau's become a dictator. If I'm being very honest, I'm like, and I don't use that word lightly. I actually honestly think that he's become a dictator. But I wouldn't be surprised if he won again. Unfortunately, we don't have terms like you guys. Like we could just be prime minister forever.
yeah,
There's no two terms. Like he's been. I think he's been since 2015. I think he's been prime minister. I want to say. I could be wrong. And then he had that snap election, which was so diabolical, but it was so brilliant because he got. I think he needed. I think that's when he had like the best approval ratings. And I think he had a minority government, and he did it to get a majority government for the Liberals. And it was so brilliant, but it was so evil. I was like, oh my god, I respect it, but fuck this guy. I can't stand it. So I got
just
my own
very
issues.
hard to for people to pay attention for long periods of time and
I
track
also
everything
wish.
that
Sorry, last
happens.
thing. I wish that people would start paying attention locally because that's really the stuff that affects you on the immediate level. It's I think people are always too worried about like Congress and like Parliament and like the Prime Minister and like the President, and it's like who's on your school board? Who is your mayor? You know what I'm saying? Who is like your like not your sheriff, but like police commissioner and this district and blah blah like that stuff like that you could vote for, the school board stuff, like that's the stuff that's going to have an immediate effect. I'm not saying don't pay attention to the other levels, but I find that most people only pay attention to the national stuff. And if you actually went from the ground up and you pay attention accordingly, even if maybe the worst president of your lifetime is in there, in your specific town, area, county, whatever the case may be, you might be all right. People in Florida seem to be very happy for the most part, from what I can tell. What's the other place I'm seeing? Like, is it West Virginia?
Well,
West.
that's also very the types of people that live there, the type of what they're trying to accomplish. So it just kind of depends, I guess. So yeah, sometimes you have to be careful with that too, because it's just like the people who are loudest are, of course, going to be the people who are going to be happy. So like in Florida, I don't know everything, but let's just say the people who are the business owners that are getting the people who come in for travel or stuff like it's like the people who are doing well. Of course, they're gonna be a lot more vocal about how happy they are, especially if they're the more upper class
They've
citizens
got a lot of
compared
new
to
people that
people.
moved there since I guess since the Panini because uh DeSantis I think didn't shut down for very long if I remember correctly. So it's one of those places where people are migrating to. Um I don't know if that's a good or
Well,
bad thing.
I mean,
I'm just
I mean
saying.
that's not surprising because just like Texas is one of those states where you're not getting hit with income tax and stuff like that. So you're keeping your money. It's people like the weather. Florida's just one of those places that's always going to prosper no matter who's in charge. It's very hard for you not to prosper there. And then depending on who you are, race, gender, age, business owner, non-business owner, and depending on who in charge, you're helped even more. So it's just a lot of factors that go into that. So I just think you have to be careful sometimes on who that's benefiting and who that's not benefiting. But that's also a fair point that if they're happy with their governor at the end of the day, it comes down to, you know, you the voting, or at least that's what we think is supposed to happen, is who's voting for it. So
And do you at all see anything like related to the border crisis where you're at? Because I know you're in Texas. I don't know how close you are to Eagle Pass, whatever it's called. So I'm not trying, don't like I'm not saying like don't like
I
dox yourself,
remember
but like do you
Governor
feel or
Abbott
not
was
see it?
talking about something.
Okay.
He was talking about something. The last thing I saw was Abbott was talking about something, and I don't know if I got the full context on it, so that's why I'd have to look at it. But
No, I kind
he
of
was
meant
talking
more like
about building
personally. Like, do
border.
you ever see it or not? Like that's you're more removed from that, or you have to go out your way to see something like that,
A
or
little
maybe you
bit
just
I
don't
have to go.
notice.
I see some things with Texas, but I don't see a lot of things pertaining to Texas because, like you said, it's just more big national government news more than local news half the time. When you want local news, you really have to like curate yourself or make sure you follow local newspapers or something that's talking about that. If you don't, then it just you're not going to see, or you got to follow Texas reporters that cover that type of stuff because that's not usually the stuff that sell. People like looking at crime and they like looking at economics.
I
So
was I
if
was look I saw
if
Elon and did a
people do some
stream
of that,
where he was at Eagle Pass, and there I guess they were showing the border situation there and how people just kind of walk in or whatever the case was. So I was just wondering because I can't say that I've personally in like my area where I live at seen like a migrant issue or anything of the sort. Don't get it twisted. I actually have seen a lot of different people move near my neighborhood, and I assume it's because our housing pricing has gotten so bad that a lot of people have had to downgrade, so to speak, right? So I definitely am seeing a lot of that because a lot of these people look like it's hard to explain, but I imagine that they have like real decently good paying jobs. Or just you guys have literally seen that one video of the 1.2 million house and that nigga's in the tightest space ever, and the bathroom was right by the bed. The TikTok, whatever.
oh
Like
yeah,
it's really bad. Like so, I know a lot of people. Like a lot of people I know have had to also move back in with parents and all kinds of stuff like that. It's just kind of crazy. But I can't say like the literal tent cities and migrants are like affecting me personally at this point. I think that's more downtown Toronto in the heart of the city.
well
So
yeah. Let's say you also got to
that's why I
think
was asking.
Texas is a really big place too. So just
Oh,
because it's not affecting me does not mean it's not happening in other parts of Texas. I guess that's the thing because Texas is so big. So it's just like in Houston, I haven't noticed any of that, quite frankly. I mean, the people that move in my neighborhood, it feels like white people are buying the houses back because my neighborhood is predominantly old people and there's a lot of
you,
old
you
black
just
and
reminded me of
Hispanic
something I
stuff like
just
that.
saw last night. Did you see the Katy Perry act? Apparently, Katy Perry's like beefing with like old people for like a house or something like that. Like
Oh no, I
she,
have not
I
seen
don't know the full context. It's like there's some dying old man who's like well off, and I don't know if he sold his house to her or something, but like I guess he wants to like not do it now, but she like wants the house, and now there's something called the Katy Perry Act. Look it up. I mean, if you ever get a chance, just look it up. You'll kind of see it. Type in the Katy Perry Act. I thought that was kind of funny. You just reminded me of that. But all right,
That's
you ready
wild.
to hop into this TikTok video? I think it's TikTok video, or is it a short? What is it?
Yeah, I sent you two. I think it was
Okay.
that, but yeah, it's TikTok for both.
Did I save two?
They're both in your Discord now. Your Discord. Yeah.
I see the one with the dude, the white dude. I'll see the
Oh,
other one.
maybe the other one didn't send. Then I guess the other one is still in your text
Try
message.
again.
I don't know. We'll figure that
But
out.
but give me context for that one. Like what like a little bit of what do you want to look at?
Oh, with the okay, so the dude in your DMs, I just thought it was it's not nothing like brand spanking new, but I thought he was pretty good just with his words, putting into kind of like if you take a step back, you can't talk. You take a step back and kind of look at the perspective of Gen Z and just kind of like the modern what we're living in right now, and just
Mhm.
like how it leads to kind of some of the problems we're talking about, how it kind of a little bit ties in what we were talking about earlier, just like how people, you know, with the Taylor Swift, how they're following just Taylor Swift, and how people, political parties, just some interesting. You'll get it
So being in a
very
constant
quickly.
state of surveillance, plus being shown that the way to succeed is to hyper compartmentalize every single
You know
aspect of
what?
your
I can't do it
personality
this
and
way because
neatly
I can't hear it. I gotta actually do it like this. I won't be able to hear it if I do it like this.
Yeah, but
Maybe.
really, it's like kind of like individuality crisis is
Mhm.
basically what he starts talking about there.
So being in a constant state of surveillance, plus being shown that the
Okay. The Gen Z individuality crisis, new surveillance, and the societal reliance on social media. I'm actually a little upset of how much I need to have my phone to do just about everything, and because I'm a guy who likes to use cash. I still carry cash on me, bro. And there's places that I go that's like, yo, debit and credit only. I'm like, this is getting ridiculous. But all right.
Yeah, facts.
I'm playing it now.
So being in a constant state of surveillance, plus being shown that the way to succeed is to hyper compartmentalize every single aspect of your personality and neatly label it for a Pinterest search, I think is causing young people to freak out about what it means to have an identity. What I think older generations need to realize about Gen Z and Gen Alpha is that we live in a surveillance state that is completely unprecedented in the history of time. Obviously, there's like the government surveillance state, which has obviously exploded post 9/11 and through the boom of technology. But there's also another surveillance state that comes from literally everyone around us all the time. No previous generation has ever seen their behavior noted, replicated, shared, and condemned at the level that kids see it today. Because everything
I actually agree with that so far. I don't know if you're watching along. I'm 41 seconds in. Probably should have did the screen
Yeah, I
share.
am.
My
I'm
bad.
watching on my phone because I
Oh,
can't
okay.
see
My
it sometimes.
okay,
So
okay.
I'm
My
doing
fault. Okay,
both.
okay. Cause I when did I have this conversation? I think Will Smith said this, where it's like it's not that there's more or less racism, it's just that we can see it more because everyone has a phone, everyone's phone has a camera, and it's like yeah, like you could be walking, mind your own business, and maybe you pick your nose. I know it's a stupid example, you pick your nose, but like someone's like, oh, look at this guy digging his nose on the bus, like stuff like that, and what I can say it affected me from a public standpoint is I carry myself with a certain level of decorum in public on purpose because I just don't want to be misconstrued or misinterpreted for anything. Like if I walk by a lady, like, excuse me, madam, may I get past? Thank you very I don't want to touch. I want my shirt to brush her, so I kind of get that to some degree. But let me keep going. Let me keep going.
everything becomes a defined niche, everything becomes a meme. One of the most interesting phenomenon that I've noticed as I've been using TikTok is the idea of niching down. This is an idea that's been on social media forever, but I think it's really, really big on TikTok.
Niching
Basically,
down.
creators, and we are all creators at this point, need to find the most specific possible thing that they can do for their content, that they can replicate over and over and over again, lest they be forgotten by their audience and left behind by the algorithm. This is why TikTok has a huge population of creators that literally do one joke forever, and it's really, really hard to kind of break out of being known for just that one thing. So since the way to success is constant niching down, this effect has actually bled into these kids' everyday lives because they're online all the time. So this leads to kids basically going through their personality and going through the
I sympathize with having to be born in this era. Like it's nice, it's convenient, and you know what I'm saying. But it's like I remember a time where like the and like I can't remember who made this point to me. It's not my own point. It's something that I never thought about. If you wanted to be online, you had to be on your PC or a laptop or like at school or something. But because the phone can now be online, people are online all the time, and that has become like real life in some ways. Because I know real life is real life, but like me and you have talked about before, let's say I say something let's say I have a good job, I say something on Twitter people don't like, and they're like, and they find where I work, they get me fired. Like Twitter can actually affect your real life or online stuff. Let me finish the TikTok. I'm talking too damn much. My bad.
The things they enjoy, neatly boxing them up into a bunch of different categories and describing themselves through those things. Now, in 2023, all day, every day, I'm probably gonna be getting shown kids that dress exactly like me, listen to the same music as me. For a while, it might feel like I'm gaining a community online and seeing that there are other people who are just like me. Until a video comes along where the comments are calling people that dress
Just like
like
me,
me
for
and
real.
like music like me NPCs. And there's a new series of videos that make fun of the subculture that I've become attached to. And this is what I was talking about in my cringe video. You can't be a follower because you're an NPC, but you also can't be an outcast. So you have to be a tech gorp cottagecore breakbeat enthusiast whose personality differentiates from other people. Breakbeat.
Create a markable, appealing sense of which is on trend, but also very unique. These have to get more unique over time to account for the amount of niches and the speed at which things become corny. That's fair.
Enthusiast whose personality differentiates from other people because you wear a different type of raver pants. Social media has democratized virality to the point that anyone can become viral, especially if they create a specific niche. So while it might be easy to try to tell these kids just turn off the TikTok, there is a monetary and social capital drive to be performing and filming at every single moment, marketing yourself at every single moment. And you can't blame the kids. The platforms are showing them day after day that this is how you succeed, this is how you become popular, and this is how you become wealthy.
Shout out to Little Freak 26. What's your take on this?
So yeah, I just thought it was an interesting conversation because I'm probably gonna ramble slightly, but 'cause I think it leads into a couple of things. So the first thing I start with the first thing is kind of like we're under when he's talking about just living under the amount of surveillance that we do.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really it's like the fact that we don't think that like a person people do because people do call I have to give people credit. People do call this type of behavior out on Twitter sometimes, but just like people just taking pictures of you like you and me could just be sitting on the bus doing nothing
Mhm.
and just sitting in our hoodies and it could just be some random person taking a picture of us and just post it online and be like, look at these two fucking thugs or some crazy. And you're like, what the hell? Like I would just like you don't even like and you
Look
didn't
at
even
those
know what happened.
dusty ass shoes.
Yeah, or you're just so insane. And you're like, you didn't even know what happened. You were just sitting there and people just taking pictures of you, just constantly doing stuff like that, and everything just being captured. And so, like the first part that we talked about, with that and like the morality, just kind of like how we just kind of normalize that type of stuff, is like super big to me because I always think about all the time when I talk about like I always make the joke that like, man, I really when I was in middle school and stuff, if I would have pulled out my camera and recorded more, I could have been famous for something by now. Like because like crazy stuff happen all the time, but we didn't record none of that stuff, and now everybody records everything they do. So it's kind of just like crazy. And you see it happen all the time. People complain about it when they're even musicians are just like everybody pulling out their phone, not enjoying the music, and just like everything is being recorded all the time, whether good or bad or anything. So that's the first thing for me. And the second thing he was talking about how everything is becoming like everything needs to kind of like go into a category because like a specific niche and stuff like that. And it the way I was kind of looking at it, it's just like some of the disconnect between modern communication or that could become a communication problem because I'm not even someone who always believes that everybody has communication problems with talking or this generation doesn't talk enough. But one thing I will say that gives that credence or credit is that because these kids and just because of young people just watching a bunch of this stuff, you just kind of get into like meme talk. Everything you talk just sounds like a meme. You're not speaking anything. Like everything is just like, or everything you have to talk about has to end up going into this. And if somebody is like disconnected from that realm, they're not gonna know what you're talking about. For example, we'll just use it because you and me always joke about this, but that's because it kind of transcended that app. But let's say before the ice cream yes 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 girl became big, if she was just like a niche on Twitter, and I came to you and made that reference, you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what are you like? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, the NPC girl on TikTok. Yes, 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 ice cream. Doing that stuff. And you're like, what the hell? What are you talking about? So I just think I agree, especially with just like the thousands and millions of topics on TikTok and stuff like that. And it's just like them trying to turn everything into a niche, even nostalgia level stuff. I just think it's just a lot of going on and a lot more thinking than you think it does on young people's like psyche and value without them probably even like realizing it and stuff like that. I just thought it's kind of an interesting discussion in that way to me.
No, I don't. I didn't really disagree with much of what he said. Uh, don't blame the kids is one of those things that I struggle with because my state, my like kind of stance on personal accountability responsibility. But obviously, if you've been socialized a certain way, it's going to affect your long term psychology and how you, and your political and philosophical ideologies on life. However, this is the part where I'd be like, where are the parents? Are the parents around? Are the parents actually involved in knowing what their kids are into, who they're talking to, what their community is? And this is the problem that I have with a lot of parents these days. I think millennials are not great parents. Honestly, I really believe that. Like on average, or like from top to bottom, I don't think they're great parents because I'd be the type to like talk to my like I'm not gonna say my kid can't be online, but I'm gonna monitor it. I want to know who their friends are. I want to know who they're talking to, what they're into. If they're in, I don't know, TikTok and their community's NPC stuff, I'd just question them about it. Like, why do you like this? Stuff like that. Like, I don't think these parents talk to their kids about this kind of stuff. And then with and actually, to this guy's credit, I also think parents probably have to go through these type of things too, where it's like, okay, what if your kid now is having some gender ideology problems? What do you do as a parent? Do you affirm it immediately because it's all right? Because it's like, okay, the right thing to do is to affirm it. But what if you don't believe that your child actually is that, but they're being kind of conditioned into it? Well, you could be like, well, my son is not a woman, not a girl. This. No, he's not. And all of a sudden now that parent is on the news, is being blasted. And I don't know if you know, over here there's been situations where like people have lost their kids over stuff like that. So I don't
Yeah, I've
know, it's
heard.
tough. But this is one of those moments where I have to ask myself, like, where are the parents and what are they doing? How are they thinking about this, and how are they involved in the child's life to make sure that they're, I guess, navigating the internet properly. When the internet first came out for us, it wasn't that prominent, it was different. But one thing parents used to always say to me, or maybe to you too, is like, anything you put on there is forever. Be careful what you
Yep.
do, and obviously, like, you know don't like talk to strangers type of thing. But obviously, internet, you're gonna meet people and talk whatever. Like, kind of like know what you're doing. But my mom always say know your friends, stuff like that. So like for me, I don't know. I felt like I was quote unquote raised properly to deal with it. If that makes sense.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, I do agree with you from the standpoint. So a little bit of defense, but a little bit also agreeing with you. I think it's a problem, and my problem with parents is that you need to familiarize yourself, no matter your age, because some of the parents that raise singers, they know either. Some of them are a little bit older, even ones a little bit older, not just all the young people. But
Mhm.
parents and older people in general have to stop fighting the time period and realize that we're in a digital age. You have to familiarize yourself with the internet or get left behind.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. That's where everything is going. Jobs, communication, everything. But one reason to do that is so you know the dangers of it, and so you know how to talk to your kid, and so you know how to protect them from it, or at least no. Because problem is, for example, right? Let's talk about when like something that's less this, but like TVs, for example, right?
Hmm.
A lot of parents don't even know how to work their TV, so how are they gonna block channels so their kids won't watch it? For example, how are
Hmm.
you gonna block the porn channel or the HBO with the heavy rated R movies or something like that if you don't know how to use it? So part of the problem is I think parents just got to stop being so lazy from the standpoint. And I know parents got a lot on their plate, so it's not even necessarily, but I think it is a little bit of just like you got to do the work. You got to figure out what you're doing. You got to figure out how your stuff works, and you got to learn it. Because if you want to protect your child, the best way for you to do that is to learn how to do it. Or if you don't know, ask somebody.
But
Something.
then there's the other side to this. So I don't know if you're familiar with I actually vaguely remember this girl, but I didn't know that she was still around like that. But it was her name is Miss Little Tay. It was like that that
Yes,
that that
I just saw it. That whole situation is insanity,
and
at
yeah,
least
so you
from
saw
all
what
the
she
things
was
that I've
talking
seen.
about, everything like that, right? Because I think the opposite side to this is maybe the parents are aware of like, okay, internet can make you money, yada yada blah blah, and now you're abusing. I would argue you're abusing your kid, talking about yeah
Yeah.
yeah, get your money up, nigga, whatever she was doing. I can't remember. Like I remember she just like you should speak with that
Right. Well, yeah,
vernacular.
people were saying that when she first came out. They were like, "Hey, yo, like, why is her parents letting her run around and do this?" Because she was like
She
9,
wasn't.
10.
So yeah, so
So
there's
it's like
another
you
end to the
know this is
spectrum.
not her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know this is not her like allowing this or whatever. Like that's a 9-year-old girl. Why she not run around playing with toys or whatever she wants to do? Just not
Mhm.
this. This is weird. So
Yeah.
I give people credit for that. For that. But yeah, but that's what I was saying, like a little bit of the parent, but also defensive of them. This is the most challenging era of parenting ever.
You think so?
I mean, from certain standpoints. They're more challenging era from the standpoint that like,
Keeping them
yes, if you
alive
go
and shit.
back to
No,
like,
no, good
yeah,
point, good
if you
point.
go
Yeah.
17,
I get
1800s
I
with
get
like
what you mean though.
military,
I get what you
yeah,
mean though.
but it's like you've never had as many challenges as
And we've
baby
never been
boomer
more
era
fractured
stuff.
as families and communities too, where a lot of
Yeah,
people are they have blended families or they're single parents, like single dads, single moms for the most part. So there's that component too.
yeah, 100%. Also, just from the standpoint that I feel like today, good and bad kids, because they see so much more stuff, they have more questions. They question authority a lot more. It's not
Hmm.
always as simple anymore. It's just that I'm your parent, listen to me because I'm your parent. Or even if it's not you, they don't have that same. They might have that respect for you, but they don't have that respect for other authority figures. As soon as they leave your house, nobody gets respect. I
Hmm.
mean, we've been talking about you and me have been talking about for a while. A couple things with just teachers, all the stuff the teachers have to deal with these days. Teachers have to deal with so much. They've never had to deal with a more turbulent time. They don't know what to do. They don't have
Some of
any
those kids are in
money.
that
The
class
school's not
unruly, just
helping
making
them.
content.
Right. Yeah, they're not getting no funding. They're not getting no support. They got to deal with the parents, the students, and their own unemployment. So it's just like, yeah, you go in there and you're a teacher. You're like, what do I do? Can't put my hands on the kid, but then I try to confiscate the phone, and that's a problem because you're like, oh, why you confiscating their
Then I gotta get
phone? You
pepper
didn't buy
sprayed.
it.
Then I gotta get pepper sprayed
Yeah,
for that.
right. And then it's just like,
I'm sorry, that was funny.
and then
Ain't no,
if a student tries to hit
I'll
you
beat
and
your
all that,
ass.
he's like, hand it back. It's they got to deal with a bunch of problems. So that's why a lot of them just quit. Don't want to do this no more. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of issues compounding itself in all these things. Like I say it's not easy, but I feel like if we're gonna do this, you're gonna have kids in this generation. You're just gonna have to adjust.
Hmm.
You're gonna have to learn a lot more than your previous generation did. You can't just be like, oh, well, my parents raised me like this, not the same age. That's usually my big point coming out of a lot of these things is that understandable, your parents did it a certain way, but life changes quickly. 20 years is a lot of time. It doesn't seem like it. Historically, it doesn't seem like, but especially with the rate we're evolving, 20 years is really fast. It happens
And
in a lot of changes in
the technological boom that we've had, I would argue that technology, the digital stuff that we're into, is evolving at a faster rate that we can keep up with, and that's a problem. And
yeah,
I'm with you.
agree.
The old days are gone. It's not that any of those tangibles, intangibles, traditions, and standards couldn't be are not applicable anymore. But let go of that. Like the whole one man works and supports the entire family, white picket fence with the kids. Those days are over. We don't have that no more, and it's time to accept that. I think. However, I would say because I've seen a lot of stories like this. Because remember I was talking about like I think was the last episode we talked a little bit about like communism and socialism, and I said I have a very simple reason for why I don't vibe with it. Even though I wouldn't say I understand the history fully, I get like what it is on a very literal level, or like the literal diction of it, the definition of it. But I'm like, I know people who have come from Venezuela, Cuba, X, Y, and Z, blah blah, different places, and I see how they talk about it. And like I say, if you're gonna displace your entire family and risk it to go to a completely different country, I think there's an issue with it. So there's that. And I actually had a point. Oh yeah, so I don't know if you've seen this or seen this at all, or seen any videos like this. There's some parents who have spoken about being in certain areas where certain ideas are prevalent, whether it's a more conservative. I hate associating conservatives with church because it makes any sense. But so many liberals and people on the left are religious, but we'll just for sake of argument, you're in like a rural
Well, I know.
town.
Well, I think we understand why that is to a certain
I know, but
extent.
you know me,
And
like
I agree with you.
I like
But it's
to
like, yeah, everybody goes to church. They've turned kind of the idea of you being a traditional churchgoer as like an evil idea,
yeah.
which is or just something to be condemned, which is very unfortunate. It just should not be the thing.
But a lot of times I've seen like okay, it's be like oh I was in New York and they told my daughter she was a lesbian and her daughter's like oh mom I'm a lesbian and then she's like do you want to kiss girls and she said ew no right so she's like then what are you talking about and this is like her kid's like 9 you know what I'm saying and then she got like concerned and worried so basically she completely displaced and moved I believe I don't know I think it was West Virginia if I remember correctly the person I'm thinking about and she's like within a couple of months her kid was just normal again. So it's like maybe what you'll
Well,
have to do as a parent, if there's certain traditions and values you think you should instill into your kid, you might have to move to an area where that is the norm. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
I think
I'm
that's
not saying.
always been the case though.
Mhm.
Honestly, quite frankly, I think it's just because of all the things we're talking about now, it's just more so prevalent now than it's ever been. But I feel like that's always kind of, been a thing, just different. Like probably back in more of our time in the 90s when we were born, it might just be more of do you want your kid to grow up in this area as far as just like you want to get them a better position or grow up around this group of people when it comes to racial? Do I want them to be around all white people, even though it's a better area? That those were kind of the type of fights you had to like think about, like, oh, I want Nye in a better area, but do I also want him to be the only black kid around all these white kids? Now it's a different fight. It's different now. But I feel like that's always kind of been an issue. But I get what you're saying though.
Mhm.
It's just like, yeah, it's just like you going, I just want my 9-year-old not to think about that stuff and not think but
I generally feel in high
unfortunately, whether
school
you
all that
wanted
stuff's
to
fair
or not,
game. Like you want to talk about that stuff in high school more often than not. I'm like yeah, go ahead. But like go through it properly so they can like talk about it, learn about it, understand it in a very intellectual sense
well,
instead of
here's my thing with that.
radicalizing.
Well, I agree with the radicalizing thing, but I guess here's my thing when it comes to some of that.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, as a parent or as a caretaker or guardian, whatever, there's always been two sides to that coin. The side that you raised them, but then the side that the world teach them. You can never protect them from everything. Your only job is that you try to channel it and then explain it as it comes. For example, right? Most people don't want their kids to cuss. I learned what cuss words were in the second grade, and it wasn't even from like an adult or nothing like that. Because my parents did cuss, but they kind of avoided it. They didn't try to really cuss all that much in the house. But I learned what cussing was second and third grade because I went to school and I just learned it from another kid,
Mhm.
which is cussing crazy. But I didn't have no idea what all that stuff mean. He just coming in there, he's saying F word, D word, all that stuff. And it's just like that's sometimes the problem. Or just like you think about sometimes where kids learn about pornography the first time. Most of the time they don't learn it from parents or even themselves. A lot of times kids don't just. It's probably more possible now than ever because of all the stuff that we run into on the internet, especially with Twitter and stuff like that. But
Instagram, you just
kind
see
of our
shits all
age,
the
the first
time.
time you learned it probably wasn't from yourself. You probably stumbled upon it because either A, the TV, or B, you went to school and some other kid was looking at it. You're like, what the fuck is he looking at? What the hell? And so it's just like I just think you have to address it as those things come. And my only I can't my only thing with parents is just don't blow up on your kid, I guess is my thing. And you're not the example you gave, they did. But I would say that's my own thing. Sometimes I think parents kind of overreact to the kid. It's just like, what would a 9 or 10-year-old know about that? I understand being mad at the thing, like, hey, don't introduce my kid to these concepts and stuff like that, especially when it comes to being radicalized. But I guess sometimes there are gonna be cases where you can't do that, where you're gonna be like, if they just go to school and they see the older kids doing it or talking about it, are you gonna run up to school and yell at those kids and be like, "Don't teach my kid about those things"? You're probably not gonna be able to do that. So I guess for me, I'm just saying that like I think she did the right thing for her and her kid, but I'm just saying sometimes there are gonna be times where you're just gonna have to address it and confront it face on. You're not everybody's not gonna have the luxury of being able to move from New York to West Virginia.
No. She
Interesting
said,
move, by the way.
yeah, she wanted to get out of there because she didn't like the policies and the rising crime and other things too. And it was like you're right. Not people, not you don't always have the like monetary ability to be able to just displace yourself like that. Like you might just, and some people can't leave because it's like I have a kid here, but I'm not married. And if I leave here, I leave my kid in this situation, and I don't want them to not have like a counterbalance to whatever it is to be learning there. So I'm sympathetic to all those things. There was a point someone made that I thought was interesting though, where, and I'm trying to remember, 'cause I thought I thought the point made sense, but again, you have to do what's right for your situation. Where it's like, imagine you see like a fire from really far, but it's constantly slowly spreading and coming to your area. You could be like, hey, I have to stay here and inhale the smoke, whatever it is, because I don't have the money to move. But at some point, if you don't get out in time and your house is literally on fire, you're not going to stay in the house. Regardless of what you have or don't have, you're going to get out. You're just gonna remove yourself in general and try to figure out a way to start over, keep, you know, rise from the ashes, if you will, X, Y, and Z. So it's like, why wait until that point? Just take the chance on yourself now, even if you don't know exactly where you're gonna go. And I'm like, that's harder. That's easier said than done. But I thought the point still made sense to some degree, if you get what I'm saying. I wish I could explain it better. The way
No,
he painted it was
I
much
get
better. And I don't remember where I
I
heard it.
get the analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat of a fair analogy, but I think at the same time people are more complex than that. And well, I think of you. I think you're a good example of this as far as just like your parents did a great job, right or wrong, of placing enough individuality in you and enough of telling you to come to your own conclusions that you figured that out on your own. And that's kind of always my thing when it comes to kids, no matter what you think their sexuality, something like that. Or this my thing is, I don't have a preference. I really don't care personally, but
Mhm.
just speaking for myself. I don't have a preference because you're all just human or anything. But kids are fickle. Teenagers are fickle. So my thing is more just about, especially with any life altering decision or anything like that, I'm always gonna try to make them hold it off until they're of age, or at least until I think they're a smart enough age where it's just like, hey, you got to make that decision for you at that point. Because I think more so for me is that I might just not want that on my hands. If you want a certain thing to happen, or you want to get this surgery, or you want to do this for yourself, that's fine. But wait till you're of age so you can make that decision for yourself. Because I don't want to make that decision for you, or be or me, be like, oh, you gotta pass it through me. I want you to be able to do that for yourself. When you're able to do that for yourself, then I'm gonna support you either way. But once you made that decision for yourself, that's a grown folk decision at that point. Or at least that's the way I look at it. It's just almost the same as if you're gonna decide to buy a house, something like that. It's different, but you get what I mean. With as far as just like you're doing something for you that are gonna have ramifications, and you need to understand the positive and the potential negatives of that. And when I feel like you fully understand all that, then you can make decisions for yourself. And sometimes everybody's different. They know at different ages. Some people have known they were gay their entire life. Some people, it took a while. They had to go through it, figure it out. So it just kind of depends. Or some people don't even know why. They still don't. At their age, they're just like, I don't know, it's not really working for this. And so just for certain like things like that, I just think that you got to be sound reason and sound of mind and not fickle about it because those are important things. That's just how the way I tend to look at it. But either whatever you pick, I don't really care personally.
Yeah, I've always been lucky to come from like a two-parent household and stuff like that. Ultimately, at this point, I attribute a lot of things, a lot of my, I guess, individuality, if you will, and stuff like that to. Well, I'll say this: my parents used to always say, "Be better than the average bear, and be a leader, not a follower." And I think those are things that I've always been. I don't think. When I say leader, it doesn't mean that I always want to be like team captain or something like that or whatever, but it just means like I march to the beat of my own drum, and I've always been that way. I could be chilling after school with a bunch of people and be like, all right, I'm finna head home. And they're like, oh, like we're gonna go to the spot. There's a spot, the place called the spot. We're gonna play some billiards or pool. Like, I don't want to. We're home. I go home. Like I don't care. Like no one could ever like I've always been that way. And I wanna that's just my personality, more so than anything. But I do think I've been cultivated in the right way, so to speak. Because the thing that I value the most is my critical thinking ability, my analytical ability, and mental resilience. Where even if I fall for something foolish and nonsensical, it doesn't last long. I loop back around to like
Yeah.
the middle of something like, okay, this is actually really stupid. I don't know why I was even into this for this like month that I like this thing and go right back to baseline. So it's tough though. It's tough. I'm sympathetic in a lot of ways. I'm not a parent, obviously. I don't have any kids for now, so I'm being kind of reckless. But anyway, I don't have any kids right now, so I don't obviously know what it means to be a parent in this current climate or environment or whatnot. So I suppose take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but I'm commenting on what I'm seeing a lot of the ways because sometimes I
Yeah,
wonder too, is
agreed.
because of our economy, because both parents have to work and work so hard and work multiple jobs, they just don't have the time or energy. So they really
Yeah,
are
that's why
treating
that's why I
school
think
like a
it's
daycare.
yeah, that's definitely part of it. That's why I say this part of the problem is that especially even now, more so than ever the past couple of years due to COVID and inflation and stuff like that, parents have to work even more. Now imagine if you have one parent. So like a lot of people are really relying on other people and environmental things to raise their children for them. And
Yeah.
you can look at that as a negative, but some of them don't have a choice. Now you can say that's a problem with them not being better prepared. You can say that's a problem with them not being married first or whatever you want. But it doesn't change the fact that it's still a reality of what's happening. And the fact is we should still, no matter if you blame them or not, and part of a lot of the problem is people don't tend to know how to say like, oh, these people didn't do the right thing or just not in your eyes perceive to do the right thing and still want to make life easier for those below them or children or anything like that. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, people just have this thing where it's just like, oh, well, since your parent messed up, or because we had to do this, you got to suffer too. And that's the problem. Everybody wants to be a suffering merchant. They just want everybody to. You got to pay the sins of the father, sins of the son, just all of that. They don't ever want anybody to just be better, have better, be in better position. And that's why for most of my thing, I'm a big, you know, infrastructure, family infrastructure, the school infrastructure, city infrastructure, all of that. Because if you want to cut down any of that stuff for or just any of the negative stuff, to me, it's more often than not, it's always going to be an infrastructure issue because we are very visual, mental, all of that. We kind of live or we manifest destiny sometimes the idea of whatever we're living in. If you live in a crappy area and everything looks crappy and that's all you're looking at all the time, then why are you gonna want better? How are you gonna know it is better if nothing's trying to improve around you? If my city's not trying to make our city better and try to aim for some of that, some people, a lot of people don't ever leave their hometown. They don't never leave their state. They don't know that better is out there. Even with all the days and all the internet and stuff like that, or they look at it in a very like fantasized fictional way, in a way that's not realistic. Because even if they see something better, they only see the best of the best instead of like a happy medium of that. So it's a lot of issues. It's a lot of things, but I think that video just kind of helps, and some of the stuff that we can help just kind of venture off to a lot of things because we're talking about a lot of things. It's not a very focused episode this time. Where kind of like episode 1, we're talking about a lot of things coming up, or episode 0, I guess you want to say. We're talking
Yeah,
about
but
a
I
lot of
thought that
things.
that video was a good talking point that launched us into this because like we started with it and then we started to think about the variables that connect all the way back to kids
Agreed.
feeling like they have to constantly be online and you know filming. Everyone's a content creator. I think it all still are like intersecting variables, but one thing that you said I think was a good point. I still wish more people were willing to just figure things out on their own, do some research, and just kind of like just take that initiative. Where I always feel like they got to be told or shown, and I don't like that sometimes because that's not how I am. And using I could use a very simple example. Yo, that opening for your stream, yo, what song is that? And if you had just literally looked in the description, click see more, and just you would have saw it. The first link was right there. Like I don't immediately bother a creator with something like, yo, what song was you playing? I'm like, did they have it in the description? Okay. No, they did not. Hmm. But it sounds from, but maybe I could find out what game it's from. Okay. Okay, this is a Devil May Cry song at the very least. Then I can find it on my own. If I don't, then I'll ask the question. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll take it upon myself. But what you said reminded me of one situation that I realized about me from a dating standpoint for a very long time. And you know about her. I'm not gonna talk about her in great, but the doctor from Quebec. We'll just leave it at that. That was the first person that I met that was genuinely just super nice, kind, giving, like sweet, compassionate, and there was like no strings attached to it because I spent so much time dating and without what was I constantly surrounded by people who are practicing infidelity, who had multiple partners, STDs, X, Y, and Z. Like my kind of dating world was murky because all I kind of saw was some of the worst of it, which is why I'll just hit it and bounce, hit it and bounce, hit it and bounce, never stay anywhere too long. And I felt like my emotions, thoughts, and opinions on dating changed after that encounter, where I started to look at dating a lot differently, a lot more openly, and being like, why did I even used to put up with all of this other stuff to some degree? So sometimes it just, life has hit you at the right moment with the right thing, and you start thinking about things differently. So that's a you made a good point there.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to see better to want to do better, but then you also have to have the resources or have the ability to be able to execute on that as well, which is always the issue. It's always twofold.
Yeah,
First, but first we got to start with showing kids, teenagers, even young adults better. We have to show people a better world and then help give them the keys to execute a better world. And I understand everybody does not want or not in favor of just giving people everything and just, you know, have them be so reliant on stuff that does that. But at the same time, while I agree with that, you can't just do that. I don't think there's also wrong in trying to give people something to help push them in the right direction either.
me and you have
And
spoken
this is
about
not
the
just
the
a
fish the
money
fish
thing.
analogy a lot,
Yeah, yeah.
where it's like,
Teach
why
a
can't
man how
I
to
give you
fish.
a fish and teach you how to fish?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The whole
Because
yeah,
yeah, for that, you're basically like, here, this is a fish, that's what it looks like, that's what it tastes like, isn't it good? Blah blah blah. But you can't have this if you don't know how to do this. So it's both. So it's just like I gave it to you, I cooked it for you and all that good stuff, and you taste how good it is. But if you want more of this, you got to learn how to do this. Because
yeah,
I'm not always gonna be here to be able to do this for you. I might get sick. I just might not be here. X amount of others. So I think it's just a little of both. I think you have to, especially after some of the challenges we just go through. And I just sometimes I think just the way we think about stuff, and I get it. I sometimes get how we come to these conclusions. Sometimes we get there because people are just really scared at the thought of and one day I just kind of came to this conclusion about it, but I never thought about on a governmental level. But people are really scared the thought process of being indebted or having somebody who has something above their head, which is I never really thought about that
I'm
concept
like that actually.
when it comes to a
If I borrow
governmental
$30 from you,
thing.
the moment I have $30, I'm giving it back. I'm giving you $30, bro. I don't care if I need it to like fill up gas. I don't want to be indebted to you, so I kind of get that.
See, yeah, but I got it from a one-on-one standpoint, but I never kind of got that from a government standpoint. I guess until I started, I guess, thinking about it a little bit more. People are just like, well, the more the government helps you, well, then the more you feel like, oh, well, we want more government help. So that means we got to give them more power because then the government's gonna go, hey, we can't do this unless y'all let us do this. And because they helped you before, well, you're like, well, yeah, they helped me when I was down and stuff like that. So of course I'm gonna vote to give them more stuff. And people are just scared it's gonna go that direction.
You know me, I don't
And
like the government.
part yeah, well, part of the thing is, I guess it's just for me. I guess I'm always looking at it like, well, isn't that the point of the checks and balances? And that isn't that the point of us having the local and national government? Because a lot of people, a lot of countries, we got individual states. Places don't have that. They just have the government. We have all these levels of government, all this stuff, and it just feels like, I guess, part of my bigger problem for me is that it just feels like, well, one person, one group of people, whatever you think is good. And I don't care what side, what is it? It's just that if you think they did a good thing, the next side when they get into it, and a lot of times, the funny thing is too, it's like a lot of times when people get it until recently, a lot of people always end up getting 8 years. So whatever they do during the 8 years, the next 8 years, somebody else is gonna try to like undo everything they just did.
Yeah,
There's never
that's why I
anybody
always
in
say
power long
the
enough to
pendulum
do this.
swings.
Yeah, nobody's ever in power long enough. Because if you really think about when it comes to like fixing something that's broke or a system or anything like that, what are you realistically gonna do in 8 years? Realistically, or 4 if you don't even get the second chance. What are you realistically gonna accomplish? You'll accomplish some things. And sometimes if you're in there at the right time in the right place, may accomplish a lot, or at least a lot of things that are historic, I guess, in some standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But is your whole vision gonna come across for better or for worse? No. Some people it's better, yeah, they don't get the chance to do their whole vision. But then there are other people who are just like they were doing pretty good. They never got a chance to do their whole vision because the next person to come in might completely disagree with everything they just did.
And that's how a lot of people feel about Trump. If you had the 8 years, you could have cleaned up stuff a bit more. And they feel like Biden undid a lot of stuff that he did. I don't remember if Obamacare is still around and they got rid of that. I don't remember, but that was another one that some people
It's
I think
still
were
it's still
fighting about.
technically around under different names. The funny thing about something like that, see, that's such an agenda based name, and I'm not mad at it because he's not the first person to get something labeled under him because he's a president. It's his name, but it's just like the Affordable Care Act is something that affected a lot of people. That wasn't just black people, but white people too. And sometimes people didn't realize the use of it until they actually needed it. Now, am I gonna sit here and argue that it was all good or it couldn't have been better, stuff like that? No. Definitely can argue the logistics and nuances of those things. But sometimes it's just like, why why does why does something like that, for example, and I use it because you brought it up between Obama and Trump. Why does something like that have to be repealed and gotten rid of instead of looking at that and looking at like, okay, this is a good start, but I don't believe this is how it should be done. Why can't we just revise this or do something different with it?
So like retool it, fix it up,
Yeah.
trim it a little bit.
Why are we
Okay.
just getting rid of the whole thing? Because now you're hurting people that doing that. Because if you're, for
I
example,
don't know enough about the comment, but there could be something that
I'm just using that as an example. I don't know everything either. I'm using that as an example because it was there and right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did the stream die?
I don't think so. I
Are we
still see it
frozen?
on my phone.
Oh, because Simi
Keep
said
going.
it
I
died.
keep seeing
Okay.
it. I
Okay.
still see it.
But yeah, okay. So but for I'm just using that for example. I don't think it did happen just like I said, I don't know all the nuances, but I'm just saying, but something like that, for example, or anything, why do we have to get rid of it and then go through the process of somebody introducing their own version of it and stuff like that? But what happens to all the people that affected it? You're getting rid of it. That was actually helping somebody. Even if you disagree with it or not. If it was helping a group of people, I just think it's just kind of wrong to get rid of it and then be like, oh well, that was helping y'all, but like, yeah, good luck now. Like, so until we introduce this new version that we wanted, that we think is better. So I just kind of look at certain stuff like that that's going on that I think is wrong from that standpoint. Like I said, I'm just using that example. I don't know for a fact if that happened or not with that, but I just brought it up because it was there. But it's just stuff like that. I just don't like that type of stuff that happens in government. It's just like, oh, this was here, this was helping people, and now let's get rid of it because I think it's a bad idea. Even though it was helping people, now and that's gonna mess them up now that it's gone. So it's just like, yeah, so y'all got X amount of days to do this and get rid of it, especially with something that was helping with something like that with insurance. So
Mm.
that's kind of my problem with stuff like that.
That's why I don't trust any politician for any reason. But for better or for worse, they're always going to be around, and you got to figure out, you got to try to figure out how to navigate this nonsense. So I don't know, man. But anything else you want to say?
On this topic, no.
I don't have anything to watch or play unless you want to do that joy.
Oh, I sent you the other one. Did it come through? No. Okay, let me see.
Oh, that just means I'm a fuel. Was it on
Probably did.
Discord?
I tried to send on Discord. I guess it didn't go through. Let me see if I
Awesome.
find it again.
The only one that I have is the video of the white dude.
Yeah. I see that now. I'm looking. I'm being hosed.
I don't know why.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's just not very fond of doing what I asked it to do. Let me see if I can.
Is it because the file's too big? Sometimes it says that. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be that.
Mm,
If worse come to shove, I could just try to send the link of the thing itself. I guess maybe
that's fine.
see if that works. Yeah, because sometimes it's just like nah.
You said it's refreshed. It's good. 'Cause I still
Good
saw it.
stuff. Okay, I sent the link. It's not on Twitter, unfortunately. I'm sure it probably would be if I looked hard enough, but unless I got to, I'm not gonna want to.
No stains on me. What did I think of? Why was I saying Joy Behar? It's Joy Reid. All right.
The bigger conversation that we need to have that isn't really just
Come back to somebody. Give me a second. It's gonna come back to you. Do this. I have a short video I could send. It'd be interesting to hear your opinion on. Sure. Go ahead, brother.
Sure, we're here.
I got time today.
Yeah, I'm not doing nothing right now
Yeah. Just
of this
change
moment.
this to thoughts in our state. I don't if it doesn't let you post it in here, Revenant, just send it to me on DM anywhere. But all right. Are we at the end of politics? 3 minute video. This is Joy. I think Joy Reid. I think she works for. I don't remember what. I don't know, but anyways.
I don't know. The thing with
No,
this video
I'm
for
familiar
me
with her,
is that
I just don't like. I don't like MSNBC, but I
oh yeah, you know me. I kind of disregard. I just
yeah.
think it's interesting thing to discuss some of the points. Like I said, we're probably not 100% agree with everything,
Mhm.
but I just think it's a interesting thing. The end point is an interesting thing to discuss at the end
All
of
right.
the day. So that's
Let's
why.
listen.
the bigger conversation that we need to have that isn't really just about the Republicans. Like, are we at the end of politics? Because, it is a really brilliant point that the Republican Party exists in a world in which demographically, 6 out of the 7 last presidential elections, they can't win the popular vote. Because demographically and the dispersion of multiracial communities makes it very hard for them to win through conventional politics. The things they want to do, ban abortion, highly unpopular. When you put it through politics, you put it through an election, they can't win that. The things they want to do on guns, 70 some odd % of Americans don't agree with it. So they have to force these things through anti-democratic means. voter suppression is the only way. Gerrymandering is the only way they can actually get what they want, because what they want is so unpopular that when you put their ideas through the political process, they can't win. And the frustration and the rage, not being able to ban all immigrants and get all the quote unquote illegals out. You can't do it, right? Because logistically it's impossible. It's also unpopular, ruins businesses in Florida. So if you think about it, all of politics has enraged a certain group of Americans who cannot win through politics. And so what do? You go to autocracy. I'm not sure that Democrats and Biden have an answer to what do you do when something like 40% of American adults have given up on politics and say politics isn't the answer. Give me a strong man who can impose my minority positions on the rest of you, on women. We're going to make women give birth. We're going to make you do it. Because you don't want to do it, and politics won't allow me to make you do it. How do we solve for this? This is actually a fundamental problem.
Okay, but they're not participating in politics and policy in the same way that Fox News is no longer covering news or politics. It's grievance media. And this takes us back to who was standing behind Donald Trump, who was the mastermind behind his first campaign. It was Steve Bannon, who very clearly said, let's
Steve Bannon is
just
so
break
unhinged.
the system. And that's what they're doing.
Well, and the media hasn't figured it out either. Let's just be honest. The mainstream media, Fox set them aside. They're just the Republican Party's voice.
I mean, those of us complaining about Joe Biden's sneakers?
This is what I'm saying. The media can't figure out how to do something other than conventional politics from like the 90s. And so they're like, both sides, both sides, both sides. If we say Donald Trump is corrupt, well, we must cover Hunter Biden equally. If we say, we have to even Steven it, we have to find something to say because we have to say Trump is corrupt. We have to say Trump is violent. So let's talk about the sneakers. Biden is old. They're the same age, but we act as if Biden's age is equal to Donald Trump's threat. And the media hasn't figured out how to do this either. So it's like the whole system is busted. And I honestly don't think the media has an answer for it. I don't think Democrats have an answer. They're going to do a campaign, right? A regular campaign against that.
I never actually caught the ending, all things considered. So what are your thoughts on this?
So again, like I said, this is a thing where when you watch these type of videos, A, you have to come in here, you have to come into these things with an open mind, and B, you have to understand there's some level of shilling going on for their side. Obviously, everybody on this panel is liberal.
Now to the dramatic scene.
Throw them into. So obviously, not very fond of Republicans, Fox News, like they said, and a couple of stuff.
Suck. Don't do anything. Just
but
speed limit.
Yeah, I just think there was a couple interesting points. I thought was interesting.
The end of politics and 40% of people giving up on it, even people I talk to, like most black people don't think voting does anything. They don't. They just
right. See, that's the type of stuff I want to talk about that I'm picking up from the video. So it all depends on what you pick up from the video.
Okay.
So you and me are kind of on the same page. So for me, the interest is more just like, I think that's true more than era, because you're Canadian, and a lot of Canadians I know, y'all tend to, or at least, or maybe not everybody, I don't know for a fact, but the ones I know, they talk about politics a lot. Other countries, politics is a part of like their daily life. They talk about politics all the time. That's like normal conversation. Here, nope. I guarantee you, there's not many people you walk outside right now, and I don't care if you're in New York, in Texas, in California, in Florida, any of these places. Most average people you meet, they're not discussing politics. Maybe if you bring it up, maybe. But on their own accord, not doing that. And I think a lot of people have given up. I get different reports. I talk to somebody who lives in California all the time, and I try to tell them about political stuff, and they just they don't know anything that's going on. Seems to be ever. They just run around, go to work, go to school, and go back home. I have no clue what's going on, anything other than that. And I guess that's and sometimes I guess part of my thing, sometimes when I talk about people who don't look at social media and stuff like that, I don't see that as a negative per se. But when you pull I don't look at social media because it's all toxic, it's all bad stuff like that, but then you have no idea what's going on in life ever, I think that's a problem too. I don't think you're any better for doing that either.
That's the con for it.
Yeah. I think you're not situationally better just because you decided you weren't going to look at any social media or anything on the internet if you're running around also just clueless and ignorant of what's going on in life.
Yeah.
That's not any better. You're just as bad in a different way. So there's that. So, but yeah, I find it interesting, and also I kind of thought her idea of the media doesn't know what to do, how to cover this stuff anymore, incredibly true.
Yeah.
Maybe not the way she put it per
Legacy and
se, but
established
I think
media, especially independent, like people online who cover this kind of stuff, they gain a lot more notoriety and traction and stuff like that. Fortunately, it's usually you just going to the base that which you agree with, then you kind of just stay
yeah,
in your echo chamber. But like your Tim Pools and your Steven Crowders and your Daily Wires and stuff like that, who cover like current news topics and current events and culture stuff, that's where most people are going to. And I just think that a lot of people on legacy media and news, they're just outdated.
yeah,
They get outwatched. They're being beaten in terms of views and all of that stuff too. And I think part of that is because what she said, like they're covering it the exact same way they did in like the 80s and the 90s or the 90s. I think she just said actually. And that might not resonate with the general people anymore. I think older people I find still watch CNN, Fox, and
yeah. They are
NBC and blah
consistent.
blah. But us, we
Yeah,
don't watch that. Um, I remember this one video. I can't remember what it was where I saw it on CNN and they cut it a certain way. And I remember online I saw the car literally hit the people, and I'm like, I remember showing my mother, and I'm like, she was like, oh, what the hell? And it's like they're also kind of dishonest. But I'm sure they have maybe more rules and regulations that they have to follow. So so I'm sure they can't just show someone getting run over on TV like that. Maybe it's
yeah.
like
That's part of it.
a big viewer discretion kind of thing. But the only issue that I had with her was that voting did change a little bit during the pandemic with mail-in voting with the ballots, where it's kind of like weird, kind of like a weird thing because like it's supposed to be a more of an emergency situation, and a lot of people think that that was unconstitutional. I don't have all the information to be able to tell you whether that's right or wrong, but in a lot of ways, the mail-in ballots and voting and stuff, a lot of people feel like that's not right, and you should be able to do that. You should the individual, get up, register, you go vote yourself. Not me come to your like building and be like, hey, you fill out your ballot? Just give it to me, man. I'll go hand it in. Like, I don't think that's cool. I don't think you should be able to do that. I think if you want to vote, you should get your butt up and vote. But I also think that election day should be a day off, a paid day off. That's what I believe. I think
So
that
I guess
first of
for
all, it
me
should be
it
election
depends
day,
on how
first
you
of
think
all,
about it.
not week. Because I don't know if you remember with your latest kind of like election for the House, when it's supposed to be the red wave, when the GOP won, I think the majority of the House by like by a slight minority. Um, fuck, I had a point. I totally lost my train of thought. What the hell was I just saying? I don't know. I lost it.
Red
One second.
wave, election week,
Yeah, I said you should have a week
election day.
off. Oh, in was it? I think it was Arizona where Katie Hobbs was going against Kerry Lake. That took like 3 to 4 days for the result to come out. That's unacceptable. I'm sorry. Unacceptable. It's election day, not week, not season, not month, day. Figure that stuff out. But um,
So I guess
I've
it all
always
depends
sorry,
on
real
how
quick.
you
I
look at
always
it,
believed that
honestly.
we needed maybe a different system or to change something up or whatever. I want it to be fair. I want it to be reasonable, but uh I would argue, yeah, I definitely see a lot of people just completely give up in politics, especially if you've been on the side that's been losing for so long, because Canada's been liberal for so long, and for the most part, even when Donald Trump if I understand was in power, a lot of the institutions and stuff were still more like the DOJ were still mostly run by Democrats. Like, Democrats have been in power for a very long time, but part of that's Bush's fault because he was unhinged. And people don't want to go back to that era of like Bush and the Republican warmongering and all that kind of stuff. So, but again,
I mean,
I'm
both
a
of
person that believes in the
both done
uniparty.
that.
I hate both sides. So
I mean, they both done that. I mean, when Obama was in office, he was fighting Republicans and compromising a lot. A lot of people thought he compromised too much. He wasn't as liberal as they wanted him to be, and
he was
he
supposed
was
to be
just
the
kind
great
of like,
change, and he didn't bring the great change that everybody really thought
yeah, he just
that
played the
he was gonna
game the
bring.
same as everybody else.
So,
Everybody thought he was going to be different.
Sometimes I really wonder if they really are optimistic about being able to change stuff and institute change in the world, and they get in there and they're like, "What the hell is going on?" Or there's just so many, like you say, the checks and balances. There's just so many roadblocks to get to where you want
It
to get
is.
to.
I don't think I say even for some of that, I don't think they realize how many roadblocks they're truthfully or how many things they can do to put something off. How many assemblies do governments have? How many, filibusters and all that stuff? They call that stuff, and that stuff can last weeks, months, where nothing gets done. We just talk about it, but you're talking in circles. Honestly,
And I constantly
if you
hear
think
Congress is
about,
like high school. It's petty. I constantly hear
I
that.
mean, if you think about good or bad, or just some of the most historical presidents, most historical famous, a lot of them things did illegal things to get stuff. Franklin Roosevelt, you go look what he did during the times right before World War II and all that stuff like that. Most of the stuff he did was illegal. He went around Congress and all them back to get stuff pushed through, but he was highly popular. So it just kind of depends on what you do, how you do it, and if it works or not. If you do illegal stuff but people like it, pat on the back, we don't see it. So it just depends. Also, when it comes to vote and ballot and stuff like that, again, another thing, just depends on how you see it. I can understand the danger of you just being like, we never done it like this before. So that's a problem. If you write it in, how do I know it's gonna get there? How do I know somebody's not gonna change things at the last minute and stuff like that? But the same problem you have with that is the same problem people have with stuff walking into the election. They're in certain areas. If you don't belong in this area, you can't vote. They happen at certain times. On the actual election day, they be filled to the brink, which is why most of us try to vote early. Because you trying to vote on election day, really bad. Not good. There'll be a whole line around stuff. You're gonna be there for 3 or 4 hours. People leave sometimes. They're just like, oh, I didn't expect that. I tried to vote on my lunch break. Your lunch break over. You don't get a chance to vote. You try to go after work. They close the doors at 5 or 6. You're not in that building. They don't want nobody else voting.
Mm.
So that's why it's all these games and all these tactics to get people not to vote, and that's what people talk about too.
Is it
And
slow over
everybody,
there? Like it's slow? Because I find that the process is very fast. 'Cause remember, I've worked as a poll clerk, an advanced poll clerk, and I've also like voted. Where like I've told you last time I went, I left my house and I was back in 5 minutes.
it just
Granted,
honestly
my
just
area is like
depends.
literally a 5 minute walk from me. Like it's not far, and I've always voted with one exception where I have to walk like maybe 8 minutes, like the other way. I've always voted in the same area. Like it's consistent.
Honestly, it just depends on what you're allowed to vote from or who's running it. Honestly, because yeah, I've done voting things that have been very quick, and I've done one last minute thing where I was there for like 2 hours
Jesus
waiting in
Christ.
line.
Even I think I'd go
So
home.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
I'm not
saying though.
waiting 2 hours to cast a vote.
So it just
I'll go
so it
home.
just depends. So it just depends on what you're trying to do and how you're doing stuff like that. That's why I say and also the losing side always complains. Whoever
Every time.
loses is gonna be like it was unfair.
Yeah.
There's
That's why I
never been
thought
a
it was
fair
unfair when they
election.
like really went at like the right for like thinking the election was stolen, which I don't agree with. I don't think it was stolen. I think they did a good job of scaring people to not vote for Trump, and so Biden won as a result of that. However, that happens literally every election. So I don't know why this
That's
one
every
ended
yeah.
up.
That's every tactic. That's every tactic known to man in politics.
Yeah. So
So to me, it ain't no different. The game is played the same, no matter who is in there. It's just that the voter base is just different. That's why it was a bigger deal. Because people who vote for Trump are completely different than anything we've seen in a while.
he's getting a lot
So
more Hispanic and black. Well, actually, no. Let me not misconstrue this. Per my research and observations, and I should do more. It's not necessarily that Trump is gaining black and Hispanic votes, but Democrats are absolutely losing that vote. Like they don't want to vote for them again right now. I don't know what's gonna happen. A lot can change in a year. I think you guys vote like next year around October or November-ish. I believe it is for the presidential election. But he's got and since the mugshot, from what I can see, he's got a lot more black support. And a lot of the reason some of those guys were saying it, some of those guys were more like to the best of my ability, because I can't find the words right now and I don't want to lose my train of thought. Hood. Like, nah, like I understand being like framed and getting a mugshot and nah, bro, Trump's my dog type of thing, X, Y, and Z. I saw a lot of videos of that where like a lot of black people were like, no, like this is the guy to vote for, whatever.
I mean,
So
people vote. I mean, it's funny enough. Sexy Red, the artist, she was just talking about liking Trump because
is that
Trump
Pound
with
Town?
the yeah.
Okay.
That's funny you refer to her as that, but yeah,
Nah,
she was just talking about doing it for Trump because she was talking about how Trump was letting black men out of jail and because of
Kodak, and
the
was it ASAP
stimulus check.
Rocky he brought back too? Some
Yeah,
ASAP
yeah.
Rocky?
So
Yeah, yeah.
it
A
just
lot of them like appreciated that. That's true.
that's what I was, but it's just funny how a couple of things could swing things a lot in your way. Like that could have just been the most strategic move he did. He'd just be like, huh, I need to do this in the future. I need to keep this in my back pocket. I'm not even accusing him of that. I'm just saying how you could just do stuff like that and it just works. Everything could just be a move on top of another move that benefits you in the future. And the stimulus check thing, people, and also part of the reason why stuff that happens too, is people honest to God just don't know how shit works.
I actually think
Because
government and all of its intermingling subsections and variables are confusing on purpose. Because as much as I understand like the how like parliament and stuff like that over here, every once in a while I get completely thrown for a loop. Like, what even is this? What do they do?
let me say it like this. I'll give you an example. Let's say you took over uh
Sharing it up.
let's say you took over a job right now. You took over a company and it was shit. They were declining. They're in the toilet. Everything about it is bad. They're like, all right, but here now we give you the keys. Good luck. Good luck, nigga. So they give you the keys and you like, damn, this shit is terrible. But you take it and you're like, all right, I got like 8 years to do this. So you start building back up the foundation. You start getting things in order. You start fixing the toilets. The restrooms all work now. You start getting everybody nice desks. You start getting people. You start getting new people to come in to get rid of the old people who are toxic. But then after 8 years, they're like, all right, now you got to step down. So you step down, and I come in and take your place, and they give me all the credit for all the shit that you did. They're like, man, when Vincent was in control, we had all those nice jobs and the nice toilet seats and stuff like that, but I didn't do any of that. You did all that, but it didn't pay off until you left. That's the problem with politics sometimes. That's why I say it's hard to do anything because all the work that you did for 8 years, you didn't get none of the credit for. So you had to deal with all the crap, all the bad resources and stuff like that, and you finally kind of flipped it and got it channeling the other way, but you're not getting any credit for that. So they're looking at me and they're like, oh man, all the unemployment is starting to go down. People are starting to get jobs again, but you didn't do any. I mean, I didn't do any of that. You did. Or you set the foundation of it going to work, but the problem is that's how politics work.
Yeah.
So everything your predecessor did can either go to your thing channeling down or your thing channeling up, depending on what they did. And if you get the credit for it or you have to deal with the mess of it.
No, yeah, that happens.
That's the
I've heard a lot
problem.
of people make those type of arguments too. Like you got credit for this, but honestly, it was something that was in progress for a while. But it, like you said, it started to really show its face maybe 3 years down the line. So no, that's a good point.
Yeah, timing and luck is a big part of a lot of these things. For example, you can argue one of the reasons why Trump didn't get reelected, he just had bad luck as far as he didn't handle COVID well. None of them did. None of government did. But he was the president at the time where COVID happened.
Yeah.
And all it takes is one thing happening.
Even his constituents are not happy with how he handled that. Like even his own base, like some of them, some of his base is actually like all things considered very rational, and they'll absolutely tell you all the things that he does and says that they don't agree with. So that was one of them.
Well,
But the
yeah, it's just
Abraham
what.
Accords, economy, bringing manufacturing jobs specifically back to America instead of having to outsource everything to like China and this place and blah blah stuff like that. People were very happy about that. They were very happy about that.
Agreed. Well, that's why I always say there's almost no president that we've had has done everything wrong or right. They've all had their pluses and minuses for the most part. I'm sure you could find a few outliers here and there where you're just like, no, actually, everything they did in hindsight was actually terrible or something like that. But it's not that many of them.
Yeah.
But like I said, sometimes it's just being in the right place at the right time or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Him getting elected might have been right place, right time. Him not getting reelected might have been wrong place, right time.
I
And the
always say
fact
that
that
we somewhat memed him into the presidency. So he came around the time where the internet really was starting to, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he benefited from that, I would say. But he was an
yeah,
outsider. He was never supposed to win. It was always supposed to be Hillary. And I think
yeah,
that
exactly.
scared the establishment. And they're like, in the deep state, they're like, we can never let this happen again. Because I think they like to pick and choose who's going to come in. Because a lot of times at
But
this
they're
point,
also
I don't
right,
think
but
the
they're also
president
right.
really, well, actually, well, all things considered, the U.S. president is not as powerful as people think they are. But a lot of the times, I feel like it's a lot of these corporations and FBI
Well,
and,
yeah,
and,
it's
and
been that.
they're running the show. It's not
Yeah,
really the
it's
president.
been that.
No, no, I'm
Most
saying
president,
because Canada, the prime minister is actually quite powerful.
yeah, well, yeah. Well, that's because y'all have literally a leader that is not getting hit with nearly as many checks and balances as we are. Everything
That's
checks and
because
balances,
that's what
and
I don't want to do if I'm prime minister. I'd actually want to make the prime minister less powerful and give more power to the people. That's what I would do if I was in there.
well, that's how it
Also,
always starts,
also, I don't
and
want
then
to
it
be
goes the
attached to the
other way.
crown, Commonwealth, whatever. Like, listen, like these British people, like, do your thing over there in that continent. All right, leave me alone.
That's always part of that. It always starts with them having less power, and then as they're quote unquote doing a good job or is popular, they get more power. Like as I was making the thing earlier, where I was just like, oh yeah, they helped me out or they're doing good, and then now he's just like, but yeah, if you want me to do more, you got to give me even more power. That's how it always happens. That's the problem with the system. That's why we're supposed to try to be a Democrat in the first place, but really, honestly, like people always say, well, we function more like a republic than we actually do a democracy at this point. More
My
like a republic.
understanding is you guys are supposed to be a republic with with democratically elected leaders. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but
That's my
somewhere along
understanding. I don't know if I'm right about that. I'm not American.
that sounds to a degree right, but the past 20, 30 years it's completely changed how it functions and how
Mhm.
this stuff going. Just people don't see a better option. We gotten to a point where the two-party system is obsolete. There's a lot more nuance to these things, but how do you even change something like this into place?
Mhm. I I don't. What is it? This comment? That's unhinged.